it is definitely an honor to have the opportunity to address all of you today. And I want to congratulate Dr. Hines on creating a fantastic conference and a fantastic forum for which she initially, when she said today, was getting together the group of experts and people that really know what's going on in the industry. Well, there are some exceptions, but at least I'll have the opportunity to be able to meet with many of you and discuss all the amazing things that are happening. I thought it was interesting that Dr. Hines had said that, well, and when you're in New Mexico, you see a lot of cows, and maybe a lot of people in our industry don't see a lot of cows. That's why I had to show this slide. In Texas, we have a lot of horses. And the main point that I want to sort of bring to everyone is there's a lot of interesting stuff that's going on in South Texas, in Brownsville. And Brownsville is becoming a hub of commercial space. And any interested entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs that are wanting to continue to develop anything in commercial space, I want to say consider Brownsville when you're considering your options of where you may want to have a home for your company. Now, when I first came to Brownsville about 15 years ago or so, I came with the idea that I wanted to do what I love to do, which is explore space, but at the same time, I wanted to have an impact in the community. And I saw an opportunity down in South Texas. But I would always tell people, I'm thinking that maybe Brownsville would be a great place to have my career and to make an impact. And they would always say, well, where's Brownsville? So just wanted to set the context and make sure that Brownsville is basically at the tip of the United States. It always likes to claim itself being the southmost in many different ways. So this is where we're located. And there we go. And a lot of things have been happening down here. And one of the things is that we have created New Space City Brownsville. Of course, we're doing this following in the footsteps of our great-grandfather, Space City Houston, which of course has been synonymous with space travel since the dawn of space exploration. So, of course, it all starts with education. And I want to give a shout out to Virgin. I was really glad to see that they're embracing community development. It was really exciting to see how they're working with the local university in embracing developing students and education programs. And I think that is one of the key things in commercial space that is going to help change the overall global ecosystem. And it's something that we have been doing in our microcosm down in South Texas. I've been developing several programs over the last 15 years or so that integrate research and education, getting students involved directly in research for early on in their career, working with high school, undergraduate, and graduate students. One key thing that we found was so important in all of this was emphasizing leadership and communication. It was very rare then, and I think it's very rare now, that you will have a technical field, as in physics or in engineering, where not only are the students getting their degrees, and these very difficult technical degrees, but they are also learning key aspects of leadership. They're also learning key aspects of communication. And this found was extremely key. One of our flagship programs was the Arecibo Remote Command Center. It's not a coincidence that it may look like the bridge of a particular starship that we all know and love back in the day. It's a fully operational command and control room, and this was back in 2006 when remote observations and remote control systems was kind of a rare thing. Students got to operate the world's largest radio telescopes, making discoveries that had impacted scientists around the world. That and the several other programs, instrumentation programs that we developed enabled us to create the Center for Advanced Radio Astronomy, whose goal was to make South Texas a leader in space exploration. And it became the first center of excellence at the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley. And what all of this did, it's basically, as we know, the definition of luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And we were at the right place at the right time, and we had the right things in place that when one of the largest and most successful launch operators was considering coming to South Texas, we were there. We had the right group of people ready to talk to them. As a matter of fact, if you go on YouTube, you'll see Joey Martinez, one of my students, went through our program, went on to the Max Planck Institute for Radio Astronomy to get his PhD, just graduated this summer actually. And he was the first one up at the mic at the public forum to talk about what the impact would be of this commercial company coming to the region and how it affect his life and his family's life and all of the people in the region. So that is what laid the groundwork for what is now the STARGATE program, Spacecraft Tracking and Astronomical Research in the Gigahertz Astrophysical Transient Emission. It is a program focused on developing technologies for new space, developing technologies that can be commercialized and used in the arena of new space and commercial space. Our new 15,000 square foot facility just opened up, and it is adjacent to the SpaceX Command and Control down at the Boca Chica Beach. What you're seeing here is an artist's rendition, but this is now the actual facility that was opened, grand opening earlier this year. So, what are the next steps? Well, it's pretty amazing, and I guess New Mexico also understands how amazing it is to have a really successful launch program and launch company as sort of the anchor in their region. And so the next steps are, how do we take advantage of this? And so we've just launched a program in Brownsville called New Space City Brownsville to take advantage of this, to foster entrepreneurs who are coming, providing them with the infrastructure that they need to be successful as they make their visions of human space exploration possible. And together with that is the creation of a new nonprofit called Expanding Frontiers. Its mission is to foster the commercial space exploration ecosystem in South Texas, in Texas, and in the nation. There are several programs that we're rolling out and have rolled out that include education and outreach programs. The main point of these is to sort of to develop the community mindset. Basically to instill into people the fact that, yes, you can actually be a space entrepreneur. You can work in this industry that is molding the way humans are now going into space. There are several programs that we have around that. Another thing that we're doing is we're rolling out the Veterans Ascension Program. It turns out, especially in the Valley area, there is a large population of veterans that have a unique skill set, to which, in my opinion, is perfect for commercial space entrepreneurship. They have the skills and the training that they need to be able to do a startup. They have the discipline for this, and they have the background. And the neat thing that we're doing is we're creating teams that consists of veterans and our students, so that the veterans are able to transfer that knowledge to our students, and the students can learn from the experience that they have. Another very innovative program that we've rolled out is something called Rockets and Rigs. Rockets and Rigs is an initiative to get the oil and gas industry talking to the space industry, identifying common challenges, creating technical solutions, and rolling out and commercializing those solutions. And we've had several very successful meetings of the Rockets and Rigs community. Let's see, I think I have here, the most recent one was the 2019 Rockets and Rigs Hackathon, where we had sort of the entities that were involved here. We had some big players in oil and gas, Shell, ExxonMobil. Of course, NASA was there, as well as together with several commercial space and new space startup companies. And we got together and we analyzed several technologies that NASA has on the shelf that was developed for space exploration. And what we did, basically, was to develop about 10 business plans, beginnings of business plans and value propositions based on these technologies. So it's been in our experience and in my experience looking at the way sort of traditional tech transfer and commercialization is done. It tends to be let's set up some infrastructure and let's let the entrepreneur come to us. And many times, especially people that have experience in this, many times when the entrepreneurs come to us, they have some very interesting ideas. They have a great discipline in engineering and great discipline in physics. But the business side is a little lacking. Of course, there's always comes up the question, why would anyone buy that? And that question always hits them as a little bit of a surprise. So what we're actually trying to do is sort of head that off at the pass and create the business plans beforehand, get the experts in the room together with the entrepreneurs and the students, have them review these technologies. Of course, it's a great training exercise for all that are involved. And develop these value propositions. So now we have in hand 10 of these that are ready to be rolled out, and we're starting now systematically going through and rolling each one of these new ventures out. And I hope perhaps the next time that I address this community, I will be able to talk to you about the successful rollout of several of these startup companies. The last thing I want to discuss or just mention, and I touched on this briefly, is the fact that New Space City Brownsville is located only about 5 hours driving south of Space City Houston. And we have been working together with the groups up in Houston, including Houston Spaceport. I know the director is actually here in the audience at the moment. And we've been working to develop what we're calling the Space Technology Corridor, where we have stakeholders from both sides and in between getting together and developing a business roundtable to try to understand what do we want to have brought into the region when it comes to commercial space? What do we want to promote? What's the 5-year, 10-year vision? And then how do we take that vision and talk to our local legislators and make that a reality? And we've already had some initial conversations on this, and we'll be rolling this out in the very near future. So I just want to end with the Brownsville area in South Texas is now becoming a haven for commercial space and commercial space entrepreneurs. And those that are interested or those that know someone that are interested in developing a commercial space startup, I want to ask you to consider Brownsville, have it on your radar, and definitely come talk to us about possible opportunities. Thank you very much.
Wow, this is great. And, did Benji already leave? I think he owes you for having all the nice pictures of their SpaceX Star Hopper. Question that I've got from the audience is, what's the orbital flight corridor azimuth from Brownsville? Do you worry about overflight of other countries?
So that's actually interesting. It's a fantastically interesting question. And one of the things, well, first of all, I believe we're at 25 degrees. It is it's as far south as you could possibly get to the equator and still be in the continental United States. It's making it a very interesting place from that perspective. But one of the other things is many people on my team and in the University Expanding Frontiers, we have a lot of experience working with and dealing with border issues. And of course, we are working with the Mexican Space Agency on a lot of projects. We are working with our neighbors to the south. We consider it to be a one sort of corridor of knowledge, and sort of that both sides are moving forward in this. So there's enormous interest in Mexico for commercial space. And we're actually well poised to be able to sort of work through any of those sort of issues and have those discussions, bring those discussions to the table. And it'll be one of the things that the Business Roundtable actually addresses is how we work with Mexico, which is of course the major country to our brother to the south. So
I thought Cuba was in the way. Are you working with the Cuban government as well?
Not that I can talk about.
Okay. Won't go there. Has the administration of UT Rio Grande, what has the administration of UT Rio Grande done that's been most helpful to you and might encourage other universities?
So the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley, of course, has been most helpful in the support that it gives our faculty that enables them to be a part of these endeavors. It's a new university. It used to be two separate universities, University of Texas Brownsville and the University of Texas Pan American, and they underwent a merger, which you can all imagine mergers in companies, like the stresses that are there. There was enormous stresses that were going on. But we definitely, from the administration and from the UT system, have enormous support to continue and working with the endeavors to sort of create avenues of commercialization, which I think as we were discussing this morning in FAA, I think was brought up. It's the idea that a lot of this space is new, and everyone's trying to figure out how do we do this, and how do we do this such that we are aligned with policies, but yet have the freedom to create and innovate. And in academia, it's the same discussions that are going on, but they're definitely at the table, and we're discussing how we do these things.
Okay, so question, for a new space company looking to launch from South Texas, is there room for more with SpaceX already being there?
I think there's definitely room for more, as I was saying, especially with the entire corridor from Brownsville up to Houston. And for those that are interested, I would love to talk to them more about it.
SpaceX famously has been trying to buy out a subdivision near their launch site. Do you think public safety protocols are adequate?
So I would actually say that SpaceX should be the one that probably should answer any and all of those questions. If you could rephrase the question that does not include SpaceX, I might try to answer it.
Okay, so who is in charge of the range safety in South Texas?
That is, well, again, that's something I'm not really familiar with, so I should not answer that.
Okay. Are you working with ULA? Question.
ULA has a presence in South Texas, definitely, and we've definitely had, the university has definitely had relationships with them, and it's something that we are planning to do in the future.
Here's an interesting question I don't really quite understand, but I'll ask you. How much of an issue is the South Texas geology for space launch infrastructure?
Oh, yes, that is an exciting and very interesting question, given that things are extremely soft, extremely soft out there. But I know that there are ways of mitigating that, and there are several different areas, some better than others, for doing this.
Okay. Well, if we can build launch pads on Florida barrier islands, I would think that would work. But I'm not a geologist, so I should let you answer the question. Will new companies be using SpaceX spaceport? Will there be a spaceport other than the one that SpaceX has developed in the Brownsville area?
Well, again, those are questions for SpaceX. What I will say is that SpaceX it is a launch facility, and I think with the initiatives that we're doing with Expanding Frontiers and with New Space City Brownsville, that we are open and welcome to any entrepreneurs in any aspect of space, of commercial space, to be talking about their visions and how the city and the different parts within the city can help.
Do you have students at your university currently working with industry partners to gain experience?
Yes, and it is actually one of the important parts of what both the university and what we're doing in Expanding Frontiers is connecting the students to companies. And 4 of my students are actually, or 5 of my students are actually here in the audience. All of them, I think most of them, are actually working with industry partners on various different projects.
You talked a little bit about the rigs and rockets meeting that was going on. Mm-hmm. What interest does the oil and gas industry have in space exploration?
So this was an interesting, that's a fantastic question, in the sense that I can give a little background now as to what rockets and rigs was. And I've always asked the question, and it's always been the white elephant as far as I'm concerned in the room of commercial space, is how are we going to sustainably do space development? Who's paying for it? What are our customers? Those are always the big questions. And the question of, well, how do you build a sustainable space development? I had thought, it's just like, well, maybe we should be talking, we want to become a big industry. We want to become a big industry. We want to have all sorts of operations. Ultimately, we dream about having resource extraction going on in orbit and beyond. And so I thought, well, why don't we engage and talk with a major industry that's already doing such things, but they're doing it here on Earth. Let's learn from them. And that's how the conversations sort of started along those lines, and started talking with people in the industry, in the field. And then we started to realize that, there is a lot of synergy already between what oil and gas is doing and what space is doing. In one sense, you think about, well, they both work in remote environments that are kind of closed, especially if you look at rigs out on the ocean. And if you start thinking about, we had a great panel on space medicine, if you start thinking about remote medicine, they both require remote medicine. They both require to do certain things that you can't, you can't run to a hospital. So you have to have these things in place. Because of the remote environments, they both care about things like water. They both care about things like energy sources and in these remote environments. So that's what sort of started, it's like, there's an awful lot in here. And then you also start talking to people in both industries, and you start to learn, what was your career path? It's like, well, I'm in NASA now, but before NASA, I was actually working for Schlumberger. And before Schlumberger, I was working for Pioneer Natural Resources. And then before that, I was over at JPL or something like that. And you start to see that the engineers that are in these fields are actually moving back and forth between both space and oil and gas. So you start to see, it's like, okay, so there's a lot of synergies here. We've started to scope those out. Matter of fact, there's a white paper on these that Rockets and Rigs has created that talks about many of these different areas. And so the first task that we did because of this, we said, hey, let's look at the NASA technology catalog. And let's get a bunch of the oil and gas executives and the space people together, and let's start seeing, is there anything in the NASA catalog that oil and gas would be interested in? And it turns out we did find about 10 technologies that that NASA created for space that oil and gas is interested in. A lot of them have to do with signals. Signals and sensors is one particular area. Operations is another area. Simulation systems is one. Another interesting one is water purification systems and whatnot. So our the next route now is to do the same thing but in reverse. We look at what oil and gas has on their shelves that they're not necessarily doing, not necessarily commercializing, that space may have an interest in. And we're going to do the same type of hackathon and move that forward. So.
Okay, well, thank you. I think we're out of time. Very interesting. I'm having flashbacks from Armageddon and Bruce Willis drilling oil wells on asteroids. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.